So I think all of you know me. I know some of you definitely know me, but I thought I'd quickly introduce myself before we get cracking into planning your summer. So I'm Sonia Gill. I run Heads Up. I suspect a lot of you have received my daily emails over this period. Just to let you know a little bit about my background, I'm a qualified teacher. I've taught every age from reception to 16. I was also very fortunate to be recruited to join the John Lewis Leadership and Graduate Management Programme, where I learned all about leadership, teams, and high performance. For the last 10 years, I've been helping school leaders, and just like you, create genuinely outstanding schools. And I'm really pleased that we've done a good job of it so far. So if you look at schools over the last 6 years and how many maintain or gain their Ofsted outstanding, it's 6%. If you look at the schools we work with, it's 24%, significantly higher. So that's a bit about us and myself and what we do, and hopefully that familiarises you. I'm a big fan of making sure that your time is used well. So to do that, I want to check that today is going to be useful to you. So I've got 3 questions, and if you can give me a thumbs up if your answers to these are yes, that would be useful, that would be great. Obviously, you can use the reactions on your screen, and just so you know, if I look over there, it's because I've got you on a second computer where I can see all of you in one go. So give me a thumbs up if this would be useful to you. Would it be useful at the end of today to have your summer break, in inverted commas, this year planned out? Good, that's sounding useful, that's great. Would it also be useful to know that you've got it planned out so that you can both rest but also manage the changes that could happen over the summer and be ready for September? Useful. Good, excellent. And would you like some tips that will work for planning this summer but also planning at any time that you can use and apply? Yay. Right, I think all of you answered at least 2 thumbs up, if not 3, so that's great. If you answered 1 or less, then look, I wouldn't be offended if you wanted to go elsewhere, that's fine, but I think you're all with me. So let's get cracking. I'm going to pose a question to you on a Zoom poll. I don't know who's used Zoom polls before, but the question I'm going to pose to you is this. Do you plan your summer holiday? And you should see that poll come up now. Cast your votes, yes, no, or sometimes. So it sounds like for most of you, and what I typically hear is that in a normal year, you would plan you'd work the first bit of the summer, you'd then have a chunk off in the middle, and then you'd work the last bit of the summer before you come back. Yeah. Obviously, this year, it's different, isn't it? As this year has been panning out. So let me share my screen with you, and let's start looking at how we can cope with the fact and get the most out of the fact that this is going to be a different summer holiday to the usual summer holiday. Let's face it, the last few months, they've been a roller coaster, haven't they? You closed your schools very quickly in March. You then very quickly, in a matter of days, reopened for key workers. You might have stayed open for Easter, you might not. And then in May, it was all the talk of, are we opening up? How are we opening up? What does that look like? To then understand what that looks like, and you've put in place bubbles, or some people have called them pods or cocoons, but those groups of your students and so on. Now we're heading to the summer holidays. And whilst there is clearly a strong desire for all students to be back in September, we don't know quite exactly what that will look like, pending announcements. But even if we did, from the amount of change that we've all experienced over the last few months, in 6 weeks, it could change again. So as we go through August, we could find, the R number changes, the infections, the mortality rate, that could affect the plans for September. And so, yeah, the plan is to fully open, to have them all back, but the details of that, and even then, what it looks like in light of changes through the summer holidays, it's all up in the air. Given all of that, and as Kirsten said, your eyes are feeling tired and there's a need for a rest, and how on earth are we going to get through this next phase? Here's a question for you. when did you last have a week off? And certainly since this all began in March, let's go from February half term. When did you last have a week off? When did you have a proper break? As you can see, at best, you had a break in February half term. Yeah. But actually, I've got 75% of you who haven't had a week off since you closed schools. That's a really long time, isn't it? So I realise that summer holidays are typically a time when you get a break. And I know that for those people who aren't in schools, it feels like you all finish at 3:30 and you all get an awful lot of holiday, don't you, every year, a lot of time off, a lot of time down. But for those of you who work in schools, you know how the holidays really work. So in a normal year, yes, you probably get about a month off in the summer holiday, 4 weeks, same as everyone else, right? Then you get your October half term. Well, if I'm not mistaken, October half term is typically a time when you get ill. Yeah? Lots of teachers get ill. It's not a break. You get well just in time to come back for school. Christmas. 2 whole weeks at Christmas. But Christmas isn't a break, is it? Because you finish school and then you've got to sort out Christmas, which is getting the home ready, travelling to people, getting presents, getting the food in, all the rest of it. So then you get around to February half term and hopefully you don't get ill, but you might. Easter. 2 weeks at Easter is the first real break you get. Yeah, because you can get ill if need to be, and hopefully not, but you don't have to do all the stuff that you do at Christmas. So Easter is the first real break you get until you get to the summer. Now think about in the context of this year. You haven't had a break, most of you, since at least February half term. You haven't had a break since it's all kicked off in March. If the next real break you get is Easter, that is far too long. If you don't get a good break in the summer, you're going to struggle to keep going. And if you fall down, I know your schools will still open, but schools do need their leaders and their heads, as any organisation does. So you keeping going is really critical. And that's what we're going to look at. I'm going to give you an early tip. There are 5 key tips coming in, but one of my top tips to you right now is if you haven't already, do book a week off. It might not be your usual 4 weeks, but plan into your diary a period where the laptop goes in the cupboard, the emails are switched off. I'm sure there's someone in your SLT you can delegate to for a week, but the world won't stop if you are offline or away from things. But do look at your diaries and get at least a week off, because sadly this year you might not get your full 4 weeks that you would typically hope to enjoy or thereabouts. The reason you're not going to get that is because throughout the summer, everything's going to keep coming. There's going to be guidance, there are going to be emails from teams, parents, DfE, local authorities. Social media will keep doing what it does, news will keep coming, and you could spend the weekend, sorry, not the weekend, I don't say the weekend, you can spend your weeks being bombarded by all this information and never truly switching off. There will be a need to keep up with some of it as well. So let's make your summer successful. I'm going to give you 5 key things. Your top priority, 3 tips to make sure that the time that you do work counts, and I'm going to share this one wonderful thing you can do that will really increase the chances of you having a successful summer. Success being defined as you both get to rest, but you also get ready for September. These are all really easy to apply. They make a big difference. And we're going to hop between this presentation and the Google document you should have access to. So you can do some of that work now, because by the end of this session, I want you to have at least a rough plan. A rough plan is better than no plan, and you can go and perfect it later. Does that sound good? Give me some thumbs up if that sounds spot on. Sadly, you can't give me a thumbs down if it's not. Good, excellent. Right, here we go. Your top priority is you. Absolutely you, for the reasons I've talked about. You do need to rest. And I know as leaders, your team will have been looking at you for answers, you for guidance, for structure to help them work through their problems. And what can be easy for any of us to forget is that as leaders, you've gone through the emotional burden and the uncertainty of this that everyone is going through, but you've also had to carry the weight of leadership and make a lot of decisions when actually there's a lot of uncertainty. So your top priority is you. I'm not just going to say that. I want to do something very tangible with you to make sure you get the recuperation you need, the recharge. And I really like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I feel this one, Sharpen the Saw, is really relevant. So this is about making sure that physically you're looking after yourself, that your heart, the things that really make your heart sing, that your heart is being fulfilled, that your soul is being fulfilled, and your mind is being fulfilled. And you can see on the slide there the kind of things that we're talking about in each of those areas. Now, this isn't about saying you need to be an Olympian or anything like that by the end of the summer holidays. It's just about, physically making sure that you are taking care of your physical well-being and all of those other areas. I'm going to hop over to the Google document, which I hope you've got open. Yeah, thumbs up if you're on the Google Doc. Yeah, great. Yeah, I can see you've all got funny names like Anonymous Hippo and Capybara and things like that. So look, what I'd like you to do is take a few moments. Hopefully you've downloaded this, because if you write on here, you'll see that we can all see what you write. But take a few moments to go through this and just get at least 3 in each heading. Yeah. So I'll give a quick example of each one. For me, when it comes to physical exercise, annoyingly, my ideal physical exercise is swimming. Now, I doubt swimming pools are going to be open anytime soon, but I'm going to put it in. I also like walking. When it comes to things that fill my heart, movie nights with my niece, my eldest niece. Yeah, these are the kind of things that fill my heart. A date night with my husband. I mean, I like them. I don't know whether he does, but I like them. In terms of my soul, I do a meditation in the evening, a short headspace meditation. So that is something I do. And in terms of my mind, I've got a list of books. So I'd kind of want, one book every 2 weeks. To read one book every 2 weeks would feel like a real treat. Yeah, so I'd want 3 of those. I'm literally just going to give you a couple of minutes to just start putting a few things into yours so that you've got something you can run with. Aim for 3 in each. If you do a bit less or do a bit more, that's fine. Okay. So you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself, and that's why we want to be really clear about what fulfills you in those 4 areas and get really explicit, because you've got to recharge this summer more so than ever, because it's been a really intense term and a bit. I want to give you now 3 tips for you to really think about when you are working and how you are working. And a phrase I really like is bringing the edges in. So it'd be very easy for this summer, for your rest time, your work time, your family time, for all these things to blur and to get to the end of the summer and not really feel like there's anything's been steeped, that you haven't had quality time with people, that you haven't had quality time working, that it's all been lots of little bits and it ends up being death by 1,000 cuts. That's not great for anyone. Whereas normally you'd have 4 weeks off to relax, you're going to need to weave those recharge points, those sharpen the saw points in. So these 3 tips that I'm going to give you now are to help demarcate those different aspects of work and of the rest of your lives. So the first is set up some rules. When don't you do certain things? And I've given a few examples here. So, when do you and when don't you check emails? When are you available for calls? And things like when are you going to read the news? When are you going to be on social media? We know we've got this critical point at the 11th of August where there is going to be more of an announcement. So again, you might think about, well, how much am I doing before that? What happens on that day and after that? But set up some rules that may come into play on a daily basis, may come into play on a weekly basis. Let me go back to the Google document, because this document literally walks you through how to get your plan. So this is a sheet for you on your version to put in any rules that will help avoid the creep, the things that will creep into other times. So some examples of my rules, and these rules apply actually, they applied pre-COVID, and some of them have been adjusted to cope with, this pandemic that we're going through. But some of the rules I have is I don't check or send emails after 6 p.m. and I don't check them at the weekends. And if I'm on holiday, the email goes off. Now, the problem is, I don't know about you, but on my phone, it's almost become like a reflex reaction to press the email button. Yeah, it's like I pick it up and the first thing I press is that. It's all automatic. So to help me maintain my rule, I do 2 things at the end of every working day, and I do it obviously for the duration of the weekend. I go into settings and I turn my work email off. Yeah, I've got a personal email, I've got a work email. The personal one can stay because that's all friends and fun, but the work one I turn off. And I also move that icon to the third screen on my phone. So even though I do have that reflex reaction of pressing the mail button, there's no mail button there. I'll just open my internet browser. I put blocks in for when I'm going to take calls. And certainly over the summer, one thing I need to get better at is, when am I going to read the news? You know, our phones are wonderful, but they make everything available all the time. I found I was checking Facebook a lot when the pandemic first happened, and at a point that actually didn't help me. So I actually just deleted the app of my phone. So I would only go onto Facebook on my computer, which meant I would need to be on my computer. Yeah, and it was more controllable than, again, that just I'll quickly tap it. Do set those rules up for yourself. Again, this is about bringing those edges in. Who here has ever come across or used an urgent importance matrix? Does anyone thumbs up? 1, 2. Do you know what? I love those people who say no. Not, don't get me wrong. I love that some of you have come across it before, but it makes you go, oh, you're going to love this. It's going to be really insightful. I love an urgent importance matrix. It's one of the best planning tools I've ever come across. You know, in normal years, you probably wouldn't need to use this, because you know you're planning your week at the start of the holidays. You know you plan your week at the end of the holidays. But this year you might want to, and it is just a great planning tool. So let me explain it, and then I'll show you where it is on your sheet and how you can use it. So on the horizontal axes, we've got urgency, low urgency at one end, high urgency at the other end. And on the vertical axes, we've got importance, low importance at the bottom, high importance at the top. And what that does is it gives us boxes, as you'd expect. In this top right box, this is both highly important and highly urgent. And whatever comes into that box, you need to do, and do it ASAP because of the urgency. So a very strong example of this is when you were told schools needed to close. Everything else went out the window at that point, not because you didn't care about it, but that was so important and so urgent it had to be done. On a day-to-day, normal day basis, child protection issues go into those boxes. You can't think, oh, we'll get to it in a week's time. They're the kind of things that you do straight away. We go to the left of that box, we've got box 2. Yeah, so this is very important, but it's not urgent. And this box is actually the box where you've got to keep a really good eye on these things and diary time to do them, because they are very important. But the lack of urgency means we can keep bumping it, it can wait. Now, if there is a date in the future where whatever the important work is will need to be done by, it will move into box 1. But if there's not, it could be important work that never gets done. Let's hop down to box 3. This is high urgency but low importance. So typically, stuff that goes into box 3 is stuff other people want you to do and they're chasing you for. Yeah, because it's urgent to them and they make it urgent to you, but it's not very important. These are things that ideally delegate if relevant, but better if you can delete, or sometimes just actually delay a bit. Yeah, they shouldn't take over from the other 2 boxes, and these boxes are numbered in order. Box 4 is not important and not urgent, and ideally just don't do it, delete it. You might be thinking, well, what on earth would sit in box 4 if it's not important or not urgent? Typically, it's stuff that we kind of like doing, but adds no value. So for me, one of the things that sits in box 4 is I'd say, bordering irrational belief and desire to have an empty email box. Does anybody else? Yeah, some of you look like you have that desire to have an empty inbox. And I could spend hours trying to do that, and that is no way near the best use of my time. I'm better off doing nothing than doing that and relaxing instead, doing one of my sharpen the saw activities. So one of the ways I manage that is I'll sometimes, every now and then, probably once a month, literally set my phone timer for 30 minutes. I've got 30 minutes to get that inbox down, and then that's it. It's not important, it's not urgent, because anything that was important or urgent in my inbox was dealt with. Yeah, so it's things like that, often things that are kind of almost slightly guilty pleasures. They kind of work, but they don't add value. Are there any questions on that? Have I explained it clearly? Yeah, shall I hop over to the spreadsheet, because you're going to like this? This is a great planning tool to use with your, thanks for the thumbs up, great planning tool to use with your SLT. So on your sheet, you've got an urgent important matrix. There are two ways you can do this. I've listed the steps at the top there for you. Write down what you need to do. And again, this can be used in several ways. You can use it with your SLT. You can also use it in terms of your personal and professional life. There might be some things you want to get done over the summer, some things that you know that need to be done, maybe some household chores and so on. Write down what they are, put a time estimate in, and I actually personally add 50% time on. This spreadsheet will add 25% automatically for you. So this was a 2-hour job. Yes, 2.5. It will do that for you, and then score it. Now, the original urgent importance matrix is a 2x2. I personally like a 3x3. And when I score on that basis. So for me, a low score is 1, a high score is 3. So, for example, I would like to write the second edition of my first book, Journey to Outstanding. So that's one job I'm going to do. Journey to Outstanding. It's not going to take me an hour to do that. It's not that simple, and I'm not that quick. So say that's 20 hours worth of work. Now, in terms of urgency, it's not. Yeah, I'd say it's probably about a 2 now. I feel like it's not just a 1. I feel like it's a 2. But say it was a 1, pop that in there, and my score is 3. Yeah. Or if I felt it was a 2 urgency score, you can see how the total score at the end there changes. Now, as you list everything and score it, it'll become very apparent as to what are in your box 9s. They'll generally get scores of 7, 8, 9. What's in your box 2s, they'll get scores around 5 and 6, and everything else is below that importance line. And it can really show you where do you need to spend your time first of all. And make sure that when you are working, you're working on the things that are in that important, urgent and non-urgent sections. To the right of this sheet, I've also put a matrix there, a 3x3 grid. I have to confess, one thing I also like having is I have a big A3 piece of card with this mapped out on, and I get post-it notes and I write out what I need to do, and then I map them all out. And it's funny because even a few weeks ago, I was there thinking, oh, I've got loads to do. And my husband said to me, you haven't done your urgent importance matrix for a little while. Why don't you do that? And I was kind of there going, I know what's important. I don't need to do that. I've got my priorities straight in my head. And in the end, I thought, do you know, he often does give me good advice. He always gives me good advice, to be fair. I'll do it. I mapped it out, and actually it really sharpened up what I was doing. And I definitely had better weeks because I'd done that. Even though I kind of sat there going, I know what needs to be done, it just meant that actually there were things I was missing that got plotted out onto that matrix. It just made my working time that much more effective. I mean, it didn't need to spill out into evenings and weekends. Is that useful? Give me some feedback. There's a lot of good nods there, that's glad. I love this tool. If you do nothing else, do this, but it does come towards the end, because the first thing I do really believe you need to look at is how you look after you. So let's go on to the third working tip. And the third working tip I have for you is, any of you feel like there's not enough time in the week? Yeah, you're trying to fit it all in. And in the summer, you've got even more to fit in. You know, some of you have talked about, you know, you've got childcare, you've got people you want to visit. There are other things to do, and they're all really important. Looking after you is so critical, but how are you going to fit this all in? Plus keep up with the news, plus think about September. This is quite a recent tip that I came across, and it's so beautifully simple, but so effective. I think you're going to love it. Plan a fortnight, not a week. When I heard it, I thought, that feels so obvious. Why have I never done it? But instead of trying to fit everything into 1 week, plan it over 2. Let's go to the spreadsheet. So this is where it all comes together. So I've given you 2 versions on this spreadsheet. One is a very simple morning, afternoon, evening, 7 days of the week. I've grayed out the evenings and weekends because you might like to put in what you're going to do over an evening and weekend. You might not. That's down to personal choice. So you might want to see your day in 3 chunks. I've also put over on the other, to the right of the sheet, an hourly breakdown. So for me, when I've been doing this, what I've been thinking is, right, do you know what? I want Fridays off. I do tend to work through the summer. I do developmental work. I write my books, for example, and so on. So I want to take a Friday off because I need to recharge a bit. I am going to book a week out. But I also want to hopefully get to see some friends who I haven't seen for months. So for me, I'm going to take every Friday off. Um, in terms of things I do socially, well, I'd like to have lunch with my sister once a week for lunch. But I'd also like to have a date night. Now, if I was planning that in 1 week, that would be too much. So what I'll end up doing, oh, sorry, I've unscreen shared there. Because my little toolbar was in the same place. So what I'll end up doing is when I spread it over 2 weeks, I'm not cramming as much in. It also means that there's a group of heads I'm supporting, some of whom are on this call. I'll be coaching them on some weeks. So this will be a work period for me. But on other weeks, I won't, and I'll have time to do developmental work. So it's fortnightly coaching. Yeah, so can you see how planning it over 2 weeks allows me to put a lot in to a fortnight, but not feel like I'm running out of time? Yeah. It's a great new tip I've had, and it's revolutionised things. Oh, I should say, on that spreadsheet, you'll see there's a list of the weeks as well. So I've just put a list of how many weeks are. There are kind of 7 weeks between where we are and where we get to. So you've actually got time for 3 2-week cycles. I would definitely plan a structure for my fortnight, map it out, but within that, on that weekly list, let me pull that weekly list up so you can see it. I'd certainly work out here at least which week I'm going to take off. And look, don't think you need to limit it to a week. If you can make it 2, make it 2. I think your rest and recharge, as you've probably gathered, is really important. So let's go on to the 5th and final tip. The one thing that will really dramatically increase the success of your summer, that is, tell yourself the story of your summer. And it starts, because we all know how hard it can be to start a story, it starts like this. It is, whatever date it is, the 5th of September, and it's been a, whatever word you want to use to describe it, brilliant summer, restful summer, rewarding summer, enjoyable summer. Tell yourself the story as if you are standing at the end of the summer holidays and you are looking back at what that period has been like. Yes, it's going to be different, and that's why we need to plan it differently this year. So the important things are, it's a date in the future. You can write it, you could video it, you could narrate it and then get it transcribed on something like rev.com. Yeah, it's pretty inexpensive. But tell yourself how your summer went. Also tell yourself how you overcame some problems. So it might be, it was really hard not to check the news every time I took a break, or frequently throughout the days. It was hard to switch off when I wanted a week off. So what I did was, to tell yourself how you overcame it. What this does is it lets your brain see the summer you want to have. And if you can see it, it's a whole piece around visualization. If you can visualize it, you're more likely to achieve it. Yeah, we see sports people using visualization all the time. Yeah, you watch them when they're playing, the rugby guys are a really good example. They literally visualize that ball going over. It's a really powerful tool. So use it to your advantage. I do this myself when I'm setting my goals for the year, which I typically do around October time. I don't like doing it in New Year, it feels too faddish. So typically around October time, I set my goals for the year and I will write the story of the year I want to have. I'll also do it for the summer because it's a real point where I can do a lot in every sense of the word. I can get a lot of developmental work that I want to do, like write my books, but I can have a lot of quality time with friends and family. I like to make my summers really enjoyable, but also really productive. So I'll write the story of the summer. And then every now and then I might go through and highlight, read it and kind of go, oh yeah, I did do that, or that did happen. And certainly on the date that I set, whatever date that is for you, early September, I'll make a note to pull that out and to read it through. And you'll be surprised how much you said you wanted to happen will happen, and some of it will be stuff that you won't have been really conscious about. the amount of times I've gone there and thought, I've read over mine and thought, oh, I've forgotten I said that, but I did it without kind of really planning it in and making time. So it doesn't take long. This is a 10-minute activity once you've planned out what you want to achieve over your summer, both for recharge, but also to get ready for September. Do you want a bonus tip? Said I do 5. Bonus tip? Don't have to. We can skip over it if you don't want it. Love that, Kendra. Yes. Set this up now, if you can. How and when are you going to communicate with your parents and teams? Because it's going to keep evolving, you could get bombarded, not just from the DFE and the LA and all that local guidance that's going to come to you, but it's the outward communication. And I know certainly the schools I've been supporting, they've done brilliant communication with their communities, with their teams. But as this continues to evolve, when that guidance comes out, that announcement on the 11th of August, people are going to look to you. But as things change, they're going to look to you. So you might want to set something up like every Friday, we'll update the website with a piece of communication, or we'll put something there so people know when it's coming and you can take control of that and put the edges around it. Yeah, demarcate when it happens, not just let it be a kind of, oh God, we've got another email from this parent, or parents are worrying about this, or teams are asking us about that. Set this up now. This is about drawing where the lines are so that you get time to work, but you get time to rest and enjoy yourself as well. And this is something that I think could really sabotage that. The summer holidays are a time when typically we'll reflect, because we're not quite in all the busyness of usual life, and certainly the business of the pandemic. And to be honest, the pandemic has thrown a lot up for everyone, I think. And I think it's going to be quite a reflective summer, for not just for people in schools, but for everyone overall. Because it's a good time to reflect, I thought I'd put on a webinar to share actually how we make schools genuinely outstanding. So a heads up, we create genuinely outstanding schools by creating high performing cultures, by putting key components in place. And as I mentioned earlier, if you look at Ofsted reports since 2014, what you'll see is 6% of schools maintain or gain their outstanding judgment, but heads up, that's 24%. So I thought I'd put a webinar on for people who are thinking, okay, actually we can build a stronger school coming out of this pandemic. How do we create a genuinely outstanding school? Because if it was something that we wanted for our children before, it's something we're going to want even more going into the future. If you want to create an exceptional school, ultimately you want exceptional learning. If you want exceptional learning, you need exceptional teaching. If you want exceptional teaching, you need to have an exceptional culture. And there's only one group of people who can create that effectively, and that is leaders. Exceptional leaders create exceptional cultures. And that's what we help people, school leaders like you, do to create genuinely outstanding schools. But in 10 years of doing this work with schools and getting great results, I'm really aware that not everyone is up for creating excellence. I think everybody wants to create excellence, but not everybody is up for it. For some people, good is good enough, or actually the energy that's required to take it to that next level, they're just not up for that. That's fine. I think what I really like is that we do meet a lot of heads, a lot of school leaders who are up for that, who do want to know. And actually what they want to do is they want to know the roadmap. How do you go about it? What does it involve? Because you know what, I want to create the best school, but I'm just not quite sure how to make that shift from a good school to a great school. And I'm going to give you a flavour and a roadmap for that in this webinar. I've got 2 slots over the summer. The link's there, I can send that out to you. But Tuesday, the 18th of August, between 2 and 3, Wednesday, the 26th of August, and like all the webinars, there's only going to be so much space available. So if that would be useful to you, if you'd like to know how we help so many schools become genuinely outstanding, what that roadmap is, then sign up and it will be lovely to see you again.